if they found bones of a child, then most likely that would have been Yusuf, right? So let's just say, why is Yaqub alayhi salam asking? Why is Yaqub alayhi salam asking his sons to go look for Yusuf specifically? It's something impossible. Like where would you want us to start? Right? So that's the first thing. He asked him, he is in a position where it's nearly impossible to get him to, I don't know, let's just say the king of Saudi. We go to the king of Saudi. Let's just say he owns, he has a servant. He has a person who he specifically owns, or let's just say hires, and that person is at service of the king. The king trusts that person so much. And you were to go and say, oh, can I just buy him back from you? No, it's not possible. Because the brothers of Yusuf, they went and asked to buy Binyamin back, or to take him back. This is something nearly impossible. But Yaqub, he's asking. He's telling his sons, go and ask, or go and find and search for it to bring them back. Why does he do that? And we explain, even something in front of our eyes seems impossible. If a person who has true iman with Allah, nothing is impossible. Explain with Ibrahim, for example. Something that burns was cool to Ibrahim. Something impossible became possible with the will of Allah. The knife for Ismail did not cut Ismail, a knife that was sharpened for weeks. The knife, it was sharpened. He was sitting there and sharpening it for more than a few days. And it didn't cut Ismail. Something impossible became possible. For who? For those who trust Allah fully. Right? So we explained the ayah previously. يَا بَنِي اذْهَبُوا فَتَحَسَّسُوا مِنْ يُوسُفَ وَأَخِيهِ وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ. And do not despair. Do not give up from the relief that Allah can give you. Allah knows your situation, and Allah can give you relief for that. So don't give up from that relief. It might take a year. It might take 10 years. Wallahi, Yaqub alayhi salam, he waited for decades until he was able to see Yusuf again. We don't know when Allah's relief will come. But that whole entire time, the story is teaching us, Yaqub alayhi salam is teaching us that we should have that relief, that trust in Allah. لا تيأسوا من روح الله. Do not despair, do not give up with the relief of Allah. إنه لا ييأسوا من روح الله إلا القوم الكافرون. Indeed, the persons or the people who gives up from the relief of Allah are the people who disbelieve in Allah. So that was just a quick review from last class. We've reached ayah number 88. And ayah number 88 goes as follows. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. فلما دخلوا عليه فقالوا يا أيها العزيز مسنا وأهلنا الضر وجئنا ببضاعة مزجاة فأوفي لنا الكيل وتصدق علينا إن الله يجزي المتصدقين. Now, this ayah has a few things within it that I would like to explain concerning the brothers themselves. So, before I get into that, the previous ayah, we left off where the scene was between a conversation with Yaqub alayhi salam, Remember he says, لا تيأسوا من روح. He's talking to his sons. It was a scene between a conversation with Yaqub alayhi salam and his children, his sons. Now, the next ayah after that, Allah changes the scene. And he says, فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ. And when they entered upon him. What does that mean? They referring to the sons. Meaning what? They were just speaking to their father. Now they're in Egypt. They're in Egypt and they're speaking to Yusuf. Immediate change. Now we mentioned many times before that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whenever He tells a story, or whenever He gives us sequences within the Quran, He does not waste time explaining things that we should already know. Because this is probably the third time already where they traveled back. So we as human beings with intellect, we already know what is being spoken of here. We already know where they are and who they're speaking to. Right? Allah doesn't waste time and He gets straight to the point. Because again, what we are reading, the Quran, is the last and final message of Allah. The last and final revelation. So within it is enough for us until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So Allah wouldn't waste time with them leaving and going to again explaining they're going to Misr. Allah wouldn't waste that precious words. Yet He is very clear when we say فَلَمَّا, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ, and they've entered upon Yusuf alayhi salam, meaning they've entered his place, his meeting place or whatnot, right? Now the words فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ, it gives a sense of like privacy or exclusivity. When they enter upon Yusuf alayhi salam, they enter to him exclusively. It's just between him and Yusuf alayhi salam and his brothers. Now remember, at this point, the brothers still do not know. They still don't know that the person they're speaking to, the minister, the king's right-hand man, is indeed who? Truly, the example or the evidence that we find Yusuf alayhi salam being someone with high intellect. He was someone who was very, very smart. And he knew how to work with people. He knew how to work with prisoners. He knew how to work with the people in the market. He knew how to work with people who are against him. He knew how to work with people in the places of high government. You see, he's a person he works really well with people. And he even works well with his own brothers. And we see this throughout the entire story. SubhanAllah. فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ قَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الْعَزِيزُ مَسَّنَا وَأَهْلَنَا الضُّرُّ. The brothers respond, they say to Yusuf alayhi salam, not knowing who he is, they say, Ya ayyuhal aziz, O Aziz. Hardship and adversity has touched us and our family. Meaning, our family and ourselves, we're going through harsh times. Very, very harsh times. Ahlan ad-dhur. Dhur is something very, very harsh. Something very difficult. Like a calamity, for example. They will call it dhur, right? And they say, وَجِئْنَا بِبِضَاعَةٍ مُزْجَاةٍ. And they say, we came with merchandise that is muzjat. Now, what is muzjat? Muzjat is something that has no value to it. No value. So if you ever been to like a market, for example, right? Or you've been to like an open market where they have stalls, and when you're there's stalls where you just pass, right? You see what they have on the table, and you're like, oh, it means nothing to me. It has no value, right? Maybe it's like, I don't know, like people are selling burgers over here, and then someone is selling, like, I don't know, raw meat, for example, just to sell. You're not there for the raw meat, but you're there to actually, join the festivities. You want to eat there. You want to enjoy. For example, if it's an Eid market, for example, you don't go there for things that are not valuable, right? So what it means by musjat is something that kind of people they don't pay attention to. So they come with what? The brothers came back. This is the last time they came. Their intentions were what was their goal? What was the goal that their father gave them? Their goal was to get back their brothers, correct? So they started with Binyamin because they knew where he was. They started with Binyamin, and the only thing they can do is to offer merchandise that has no value. It was cheap merchandise. So they knew that. They knew that they had cheap merchandise that they couldn't do anything with it. So what did they say afterwards? وَأَوْفِنَنَا الْكَيْلِ وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا. Each merchandise, when we make this transaction, give us in full measure. Don't just give us like, since this is, for example, you wouldn't trade a phone with this watch. This watch is significantly lower in value than the phone. This phone is probably like, well, now it's like only a couple $100, but let's just say when it's brand new, this phone was like almost $1,000, $900, and this watch was like what, $300, brand new. If you were if I were to trade this watch, please, I'm gonna trade you my watch with your phone, but give me in full measure, meaning make it easy for me because I don't have anything else, just this watch, right? And then they say, وَتَصَدَّقْ عَلَيْنَا, meaning give us charity. Why did they say this? Because they just mentioned that they're going through hardship. أَهْلَنَا مَسَّنَا وَأَهْلَنَا الضُّرُّ. What touched us is something that's very difficult. Now, what we get from this ayah is that the brothers have reached a point where they are in dire need. You can tell by their words. They're pleading and asking, and they're actually for more with something that is not valuable. So this is the merchandise that they have. This is all they have. The merchandise that they have with them right now is everything that they have left. They don't have any more. If they did have more, they would have brought it with them. So the only merchandise that they have is something very insignificant. So imagine what their family is going through. They're at a poor state, poverty. He sees that their brothers are going through hardship. And they also say at the end of the ayah, they say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَجْزِي الْمُتَصَدِّقِينَ. They recognize Allah. They're saying Allah's name. They're saying that Allah will reward the people who are charitable. Does that make sense? So you put two things in one. In one hand, they are going through a hard time. They're going through difficulty. And on the other hand, they're recognizing Allah in front of Yusuf alayhi salam. So some of the scholars, they mentioned that at this point, Yusuf alayhi salam saw the opportune moment to reveal himself. Because when somebody is going through hardship, anger and jealousy and all of these things are lessened. The human emotions is very difficult to get in the way when somebody is going through a very, very difficult time. So if you ever notice, like with movies or even in real life, when somebody who just pretty much like lost a loved one and they're at the graveyard, they just buried their loved one, and a person comes up to them, and this person they hate each other so much. They've been at each other's necks for years. But at that very moment, they hug each other. And they say, you know what? I remember the times when we were friends. I remember those times when we had, good times together. Years that they had conflicts with each other, it goes away. Do you notice that? Why? Because when somebody is at their lowest, so it also leads to another point, which is aside from the story, that typically, or most of the time, when after war, people get together, enemies who used to fight each other, like neighbors, they used to fight each other all the time. After a war, all the stuff that they went through, it doesn't matter anymore. They're going to help each other to build their country back up. You understand? Right? So